Welcome back to part 11 of making a plywood tool chest. I'm going to focus really on fitting the lid stay to keep the lid up, which I've got these two pieces of timber here ready to go. I'm also going to probably pop the handles on just to make it easier for moving around the workshop, and then I'll take them off when I need to paint it and pop them back on. And I'll also probably recap a little bit about putting the bevels on the upper lid seal and the lower skirt because I couldn't fit them in the last video. So it'll be a bit of a mixed part looking at those three things. That's the top bevel marked out. I've just put a line, gauge line at the front, or a pencil line, and a pencil line along the top. That's about 5-6 mil in around the three sides. So I'll just block plane that now, and then I'll probably put a slightly bigger one on the skirt because the timber's a bit thicker. So just for ease of use, I've got the tool chest up on the sawhorses now, so it doesn't move when I'm planing. So I've planed the top, the upper dust seal, and I've marked out the lower one, and I'm just going to plane that one now, and then I'll give it a sand while it's on the sawhorses anyway and get it cleaned up. Putting the handles on, you can position them where you feel comfortable with them. I found that putting them, what I do is, we know that the outside's 460, so you can measure 230 across, give yourself a center line. Then I measure down 40 mil, that'll be the top of the curve. But then just to make it easier to line them up side to side, the width of these is 105 millimeters. So if you then just measure out from the center 52.5 millimeters, 52.5 millimeters, give yourself a couple of lines here. It just means that when you screw it in, you can get it pretty central. No need to pilot hole these. And I use quite a chunky 20 millimeter long screw. By the time it's housed in the plate, you're only protruding about 15-16 millimeters anyway. And we're going into 18 millimeter chipboard, so it's not going to come out the other side. But even if it does, you're going to be fitting your drawer runners in there anyway, which will double the thickness, so you don't have to worry too much. And I don't really use the handles for lifting the chest, it's more just pulling them around. So I don't really want bolts with heads on the inside where I've got to fit the runners. So I find these big chunky 20 millimeter screws are fine. That said, if you want to give yourself some small little pilot holes just to make the screw, it's just less fiddlier because it'll just hold much easier when you're putting them in. So, you know, you might as well pilot them. So just to make sure that you get the handles across square, given that they've got lots of curves on them, the easiest thing to do is use a square, put your square across, put the handle on top, bring it down until you hit that 40 mil mark at the top, and then check your side to side marks. When you're happy with that, you can then mark out the holes. When you've marked the holes out, you can then pilot drill them. And I'm just going to go in probably a centimetre or so just to make them easier to And again, if you did drill too far and came out the other side, you're going to put your drawer runners on the inside anyway. So you can pop those on there. Pop those in. So as easy as that. So I'll pop the one on the other end. And we're done. Right, we've got bevels done. We've got handles on. So now let's focus on the lid stay, because once we can get the lid to stay up, we can then fit out the interior a bit easier. In some ways, it's nothing earth-shattering really. It's just 2 angled pieces of timber strips, which again, you can make various sizes because you're going to do lots of adjustment, and I bet everybody's tool chest will be built slightly different. What you do is fit one above your hinge and then the other one below your hinge, so that when they lift up, they meet, and they don't have to meet with 2 flat edges. So long as the 2 of the things touch and stay, they're doing their job. However, one thing that is important is the angle that the lid sits at. And I've got 2 here as examples. You can see the grey lid is sitting back much further than the one in the green tool chest. I've measured this one, it's 104 degrees. So it's 14 degrees off being vertical. I've measured this one and it's 111. So there's a reasonable difference between the 2. And even though this one has never tipped over, because the base of this one is only 12mm ply, and every now and again if it is a bit light in the bottom, I've just felt it getting close to it. So this one is that's the reason why I changed this one to being more upright. Now I've fitted the top stay just with 5 screws countersunk. Depends on how thick your board is, and then you've got your 18mm, so you can choose the correct size screw. And then where I've cut this to length, I've got a piece left over. So I can hold this loose without a screw until it gets to about the right position, and with my left hand I can be tilting the lid. And then when I feel it's right, just a little pencil line underneath it. And then I've just put a slightly shorter screw, and it's only screwing in about 5mm, just enough to hold so I can test it. So then what I'm able to do is go to back round the front, and then I can open it up and sit it back, and that's fine to hold it. And once I put the complete length of lower stay on there, absolutely totally secure. So I'll test the angle on that one now. So the angle that I've cut my stays to is, well, depending on, is 60 degrees, which obviously you can set your bandsaw at 30. And then what you're able to do is push that one through, cut at the angle that you want. If you want it to be the same angle but shorter, obviously you can bring your fence over. And the other point I would make is that I don't glue these on, I never have done. That's enough. They're pushing against each other anyway, and if ever one split or you decided you wanted to adjust it because you'd put extra tools in your lid and you want it more upright, you can just unscrew them, move it up a few mil and re-screw it in, or change your screw hole positions. So leaving it adjustable and just putting it in with screws is much easier. Happy at that. So I'm going to measure that, put a tram line along the back and fit the long strip here, and then I'll test it. But I'll probably only put, a bit like we do with the hinge, I'll probably only put 3 screws into that first, test it just in case I need to adjust, and then I can move it to a new position. To mark it out, the height wise, you can either measure it, or what's as easy to do, if you've already put a line where your tester block was, just get that tester block, put a little line where it matches up, and then you can go along and just transfer that at various points so that you've got something to follow when you're fitting it. So the more you give yourself, the better. And right near the end. And actually mine's worked out, the gap is about 16mm, and then there's 34 for the thick, that's the height of my lower stay. It's different from the top one. And that gives me 50 down, so I should end up finishing 50 down. So you could measure 50 down, and that would be the underneath of this, but that's difficult to see, whereas I can just come in now and I can line that up, and once I've put the centre screw in there, I can tip it a little bit one way and the other. go for the centre screw, and then we'll do the 2 outside ones. So let's start off with that should. I can just see the pencil line there. So I'm going to pop one on this end. And pop one on that end. Two left to do, but we'll test it first. So that's good, and that feels really secure. It's not going anywhere. So I'll pop the other 2 screws in now. So now I've dropped it down onto the floor and I've measured the angle. That one's now at, that lid is 98 degrees, and that's what I went for by eye. So that one's now only tilting back 8 degrees, whereas that one's tilting back 21 degrees and that one's tilting back 14 degrees. I'm happy with that. So I brought the new one down off its stand just to show you the difference in the incline on the lids. So from vertical, you've got the first one here, the green one, 14 degrees leaning back. You've got this one leaning back 21 degrees, and you've got this one now leaning back 8 degrees. So you can take your pick. Probably somewhere in the middle. The grey probably slightly too much, but it's never bothered it in 10 years. The green one I like, it's fine. Now it's a chance to just try it a bit more vertical. It will take up less space, and when you're using it, when it's open, and we'll see how it goes. Perhaps a better view from there. So see there. Right, well, we're in good shape now. We've got the tool chest, the lid stays up, handles, casters, much easier to handle and move around and work on now. And for part 12, I've already started prepping the materials to start fitting the runners inside so that we can get all the trays fitted, and well, made first and fitted. I'll go through with you in part 12 about all the sizes and the heights of all the runners and your options. But that's it, we're in good shape. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in part 12.